you've ever been frustrated by a decision but kept quiet, you are not alone. Not every hill is worth dying on, but some are, and when you get to that point, you want to make sure you're able to communicate it clearly without derailing the conversation. In this episode of The Real Work, we're talking about how to make a clear case rooted in user value and product strategy without burning any bridges. This series is all about tackling real problems that designers are facing in the age of AI, focusing on the strategy that will help foster our creativity and help us stay relevant as we move forward in the tech space. If you're watching this video, you probably know exactly the type of tension that I'm talking about. You might find yourself on a fast-moving team, you might be under-resourced, which most designers are, or you're just generally struggling to communicate why you need to ship certain designs. So you might be asking questions like, how do I know when to speak up or let it go? How do I make a case for something that hasn't shipped yet? What's actually missing when I struggle to tell the story? And how do I align with business impact without losing UX depth? There's probably hundreds more questions you could fit in there, but the sentiment here is that you know you're right about something, you know your product needs the specific feature, but it's just getting lost and you're not getting the buy-in you need from the rest of your product team, or more importantly, from leadership. So let's jump into a few things that have helped me navigate these high-pressure design moments. First, trade-offs are the strategy. There is no world where you're going to make a perfect product. There's always going to be this classic tension of you can have it fast, you can have it done right, and you can have it done cheaply. You can pick two of these things, but you cannot have all three. In his book, Essentialism, Greg McKeown talks about how there are always more choices than we are led to believe. And at the end of the day, it comes down to our willingness to accept these trade-offs in the pursuit of great and not just settling for good. He says, essentialists see trade-offs as an inherent part of life, not as an inherently negative part of life. Instead of asking, what do I have to give up? They ask, what do I want to go big on? So I think in a UX context where we're constantly making decisions, this means that we should really explore the trade-offs when these decisions are presented to us. It's our job as designers who are protecting the essence of our product and essentially championing our users to really make sure we know what matters to them most. So when you find yourself in these situations, ask, if we could only get one thing right, what would it be? Everything else will start to fall in place when you have that key vision established and understand the trade-offs that you're sacrificing in pursuit of accomplishing that one goal. Next, you need to know what it is your product prioritizes. This is different from what your product team prioritizes. They're going to be probably focused on speed and efficiency and a lot of the operations and corporate jargon that helps everyone stay on track. Those are all great things, but that is not speaking the language of your users. You cannot effectively push back unless you understand what it is that your product is solving for your users, and being able to communicate that every single time you're presented with a new design and a new problem and a new solution, you want to be tying it back to that overarching theme. Next, unshipped designs are data, not trash. If you put the work into exploring a solution, then capture the rationale. Write down the process and the decisions that were made, because it'll very likely come in handy in the future. Even if it didn't get built, you've already done the thinking, and you can start to measure the work you've done not just in the amount of design iterations you have or how big your Figma file is, but the amount of energy and thought process you've put into your work. This will help you build a reputation as the person with receipts. You can check out a previous episode on how to build a design journal and why that's such an essential practice for designers. Next, visuals help, but stories sell. I've actually realized over the years that I started to lean on my Figma designs and the tools a little bit too heavily. Whether I was in a stand-up or a presentation, I found myself too quick to screen share and jump into the Figma prototype or clicking around my design file, because that's where I felt most confident, and I felt like the visuals would do all the talking. Now, a diagram can certainly help show a flow, or a prototype can highlight an interaction, but unless you can communicate the specific problem you're solving for your users, how that actually helps the business, your designs will not land. So if you're struggling to communicate this, it's probably not your presentation skills. It's a sign that you need more research, more data, and to sharpen your why. This is where I think a lot of designers can feel discouraged, because they're made to feel like their lack of data, their lack of user research is actually a lack of credibility or a lack of skills. But we need to remember that the reactions we're getting are from non-designers, so they don't fully understand our craft. Yes, there's exceptions, and you have incredible leaders and partners in the design process. But most of the time, you're going to be presenting to PMs, directors, or any other stakeholders who don't understand the essence or the feeling of design. They're mostly just going to take what you give them at face value. So the solution is in your framing. If you're constantly using I statements like, I feel like we should do this, or I think this is better, or this looks sloppy, then it's going to come across as an opinion. You're still right, and it doesn't negate the fact that you're presenting good feedback and solutions. But if you can attach it to user research and feedback, such as, we heard this from users, or we explored this, and this is actually industry standard, that comes across a lot more neutral and objective, and generally you'll get more buy-in that way. Now, the goal of everything we've talked about so far is to give you as the designer more confidence and empower you to push back on your team in a healthy way. But this can often lead to feeling like you have so many hoops to jump through as a designer, even after you've done the actual design work. But I think this comes down to not comparing and looping yourself in with other departments. But project managers, engineers, marketing teams, they have a lot more concrete, logical rules to the game than we do. Sure, we have heuristics, but a lot of our work is taking something out of the abstract and making it tangible. And very few people can actually do that well. But if you're already in a design role, trust how you got there and trust your intuition. So if something feels off in a meeting or a review, then don't ignore that tension. Your intuition is probably signaling that there's a disconnect in the strategy or a user need that's not being heard. So try following that thread. If you have the option to validate it with someone, whether it's another designer just to kind of do a practice run, or someone you trust within the company, that will really help build your confidence when you get a second opinion before you have to do the real thing. Finally, to zoom out a little bit, try to make care part of your culture. Now, I'm definitely speaking more to managerial or leadership roles here, where you might not always have the option to kind of set the tone of your team. But even if you don't have a title, you can still make an impact in the way you work and operate with others. Companies love metrics, and there's a reason for it, which makes sense. But when you get so focused on velocity or KPIs, then often the human side can get lost. Especially with an emphasis on AI capabilities, it can start to feel less and less human the more and more we're told to put in. In his recent interview, Johnny Ive, who was the former chief design officer at Apple, talked about how people's urge to express an opinion often kills an idea. He went on to say why it's so important to slow down and listen to each other, because often the best ideas come from quiet spaces and often from the quietest people. So with whatever influence you have or whatever team you're on, try to pause before you critique and invite the quietest opinions into the room. The more emphasis we can put on people, the more clarity we can have with our vision, and the more care and trust we can build in our culture, the better our products and teams will perform. That's been it for this episode of The Real Work. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.